I exposed my stepsister for stealing my fiancé. Now her marriage is over, and my parents won't talk to me. I'm 27, and I got married 2 weeks ago. I planned and organized my wedding entirely by myself, and everyone kept telling me how beautiful and perfect it was. I loved hearing that. But my stepsister, who's 26, couldn't stand it. She went around telling everyone that I had stolen her ideas. She's always been jealous of me, so I wasn't surprised, but I was really upset. Some relatives even started asking if it was true, which was completely unfair because I didn't take anything from her. She's been making up lies about me for years just to make herself look better, and I've had enough of it. When I was 16, my mom remarried, and since then, my stepsister and I have never gotten along. At first, I tried to be friends with her, but she always turned everything into a competition, which drove me crazy. Once, she spread a rumor at school that I was hitting on her boyfriend after I made the cheerleading team. Because of that, almost all the girls hated me and made fun of me for a whole month, except for a few. That's the kind of person she is. I put up with her antics for a long time, knowing she was just trying to get a reaction out of me. If I ignored her, she wouldn't win. But this wedding situation? I couldn't just let it go. I spent weeks planning, and she wasn't going to ruin it by slandering me. I know it sounds petty, but when I found out she was telling people I stole her ideas, I called her. I told her to stop lying, but she just laughed in my face, called me a bitter loser, and hung up. That's when I decided to expose her and her husband in front of our whole family. For context, her current husband, who's 30, used to be my boyfriend. When I was 23, I was still living with my parents and my stepsister while saving up to move out. I met my ex at work, and I fell for him almost immediately. But he insisted on keeping our relationship a secret and didn't want me to tell anyone outside of work. Looking back, that should have been a red flag. After 2 months of dating, I decided to bring him home to meet my parents and, naturally, my stepsister. At the time, I didn't notice, but she was acting overly sweet and flirty with him. I never would have imagined that he would cheat on me with her. That must have been when they started texting behind my back. Meanwhile, I was still with him, completely unaware of their affair, falling for him more and more. After almost a year of dating, I decided I wanted to marry him, so I proposed. It wasn't traditional, but I loved him so much that I couldn't wait for him to ask me. I took him to a fancy restaurant, and at the end of the night, I finally popped the question. He said he needed time to think about it. I wish he had just broken up with me right then. Instead, he had the audacity to drag out our relationship for another 3 months, while secretly sleeping with my stepsister the entire time. I was heartbroken that he rejected my proposal, but I stayed with him, thinking I could change his mind. Finally, 3 months later, he admitted that he was in love with my stepsister and wanted to be with her. As if that wasn't bad enough, he also told me that she was 3 months pregnant. Her belly would start showing soon, so they decided to get married as quickly as possible. I lost it. I had a massive fight with my stepsister, but my parents stepped in and told me to keep quiet about it. They were afraid the scandal would ruin the family's reputation. My stepdad was pretty well known. Since I was still living with them, I had no choice but to obey. My ex and my stepsister had a small backyard wedding at my parents' house, with only a few close friends and relatives. Then, she moved in with him. Of course, I didn't go to the wedding. I spent the whole week leading up to it in a cheap motel, drinking and stress eating. A few weeks after their wedding, I finally saved up enough money to rent my own place and moved out of my parents' house. But that didn't help my mental state at all. I sank into a deep depression. All I did was eat, drink, and sleep. I even quit my job because I couldn't bring myself to get out of bed. The only person who really cared about me during that time was my now husband. We had been close friends since high school, but I never saw him as anything more because he was always the class clown. In the weeks after my stepsister's wedding, I ignored every party invitation and stopped answering calls and messages. I thought my friends would forget about me since they all had their own lives to live. But he didn't forget. He was the only one who went through my parents to find out where I lived and came straight to my door. He took care of me for weeks, even though I was cold and distant. He never left my side and helped me get back to normal. Hell, he even paid my bills since I had no money after quitting my job. I literally owe him my life, and I'll always be grateful for everything he did for me. A few weeks later, I finally told him everything about my ex and my stepsister. He comforted me, but we never officially became a couple. He just moved in with me after some time, and that was it. We never had to discuss it, and even today, we joke that he never actually asked me out. But that's how it happened. And I decided it was finally time for the rest of the family to know what really happened. I first discussed my plan with my husband, and he fully supported me. He said that after everything I had been through, it was only fair that I wanted to tell the truth. So, a few days ago, I invited the whole family to my house. I called my stepsister and spoke to her in the sweetest tone, making sure she wouldn't suspect anything. She fell for it completely. When everyone gathered at my place, I started by bringing up her claims that I had stolen her wedding ideas. I reminded her that she never even had a real wedding, considering the circumstances under which she got married. Some guests laughed awkwardly, some looked embarrassed, and others just seemed confused. But I kept going. I said that if she was accusing me of stealing her wedding ideas, then maybe it was time I told everyone what she had done to me, because she was the one who had actually stolen my fiancé. There were gasps, faces of shock, especially from my parents and my ex, who immediately turned red. I told the whole story, and the guests looked like they had just been served premium gossip on a silver platter, enough drama to last them a whole year. When I finished, there was a full minute of silence. Then my stepsister jumped up and ran out of the house, her husband chasing after her. One by one, the guests slowly left in silence. My parents were the last to go, furious with me. They actually had the nerve to demand that I apologize to my stepsister for humiliating her in front of everyone. I told them there was no way in hell I would ever apologize. She had tried to ruin my life more than once, and she fully deserved what she got. My husband backed me up, saying they had no right to demand an apology from me when they never made my stepsister apologize for what she did, especially since her actions were far worse than mine. He also called them out for never caring about how much her betrayal had hurt me. That led to a huge argument, and I finally snapped. I told them, "If you're going to disrespect me and my husband, then get the hell out of my house." That was 4 days ago. I haven't spoken to any of them since. I do know that the rest of the family has cut off my stepsister. She's miserable now because she's an extreme extrovert, and the fact that no one wants to talk to her is killing her. Update 1. My mom is still mad at me for what I did. She keeps saying that I ruined her daughter's life. I'm not kidding. That's exactly what she says, just to make me feel guilty. For days, she's been blowing up my phone, demanding that I tell the whole family I made everything up out of jealousy, that I was just trying to get revenge on my stepsister. She also told me that my stepsister and her husband are very upset and are considering cutting me off completely, which is hilarious because we barely even spoke in the first place. The only times we ever saw each other were at family events, where we were forced to be polite. Honestly, I only invited her to my wedding because my mom made me. Otherwise, people would have thought it was strange. I have no idea why my mom thinks I should apologize, but I've decided to just ignore her. For a while, I was really upset that she took my stepsister's side. But honestly, I'm used to it. I told my husband everything, and he thinks the best thing to do right now is to ignore her and move on. So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm done with him. Update 2. So, it's been 2 days since my last update, and I finally decided to block them all. The second I did, I felt this massive weight lift off my shoulders. I hadn't even realized how much this whole situation had been dragging me down until I cut them out completely. I can't believe my mom forced me to pretend I had a good relationship with my stepsister for so long, just so people wouldn't judge her and my stepdad for failing as parents. They couldn't raise my stepsister to be a decent human being, and yet I was the one who had to suffer for it. But anyway, I blocked them all, and I thought that was the end of it. Then, last night, my mom showed up at my house. She looked so disappointed, like she had expected me to have something to say to her. But after almost 5 minutes of awkward silence, she launched into a speech about how my actions had negatively affected the family. I cut her off right then and told her I don't have a family anymore. I told her that ever since she married my stepdad, it was obvious she favored my stepsister. My stepsister was allowed to do whatever she wanted, and my mom always forgave her, while I was always held to a different standard. I told her how much she had hurt me over the years, and that I was done apologizing, and I was done pretending. I've had enough. My mom was really upset after my speech. She tried to explain that she grew distant from me after her divorce from my dad because I reminded her too much of him, which, of course, is completely unfair. Yes, I look like my father, but that's no excuse to treat me like I'm not her daughter. I told her I would try to understand her point of view, but I wouldn't be able to forgive her so easily. I needed time. But no matter what happened between me and my mom, I wasn't going to apologize to my stepsister or pretend that I felt sorry for her. I told my mom that, and she left. She looked furious, but that wasn't my problem. Since our last conversation, a day has passed. Even though I unblocked her, we haven't spoken. Update 3. It's been a week since my last conversation with my mom. She hasn't tried to reach out again, so I guess she doesn't regret anything. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I've accepted that she will always choose my stepsister over me. Nothing I say or do will ever change that. But my stepsister? She hasn't forgiven me for what I did. Instead, she's been trashing me to everyone in the family. She's telling them that my ex only cheated on me because I was a toxic psycho, and that he felt safe with her. She claims I was emotionally manipulative, which apparently was one of the reasons he ended up cheating. She also says that I pressured him into marriage even though he told me he wasn't ready, and that I scared him off. Of course, none of this is true. But now the family is divided. Some believe her because, unlike me, she's a very convincing liar. One of my cousins has been keeping me updated on all the lies my stepsister is spreading, and honestly, it's outrageous that she's trying to make me look like the liar when everyone already knows what kind of person she is. I know my mom won't interfere, and I'm not even going to ask her to. She just refused to say anything to her precious favorite daughter. But I'm not letting this go. If my stepsister is willing to stoop this low, then I can go even lower. I blocked her on every social media platform, but luckily, I know plenty of her co-workers and friends. And I'm going to make sure they all see who she really is. I know it's petty and cruel, but I'm done pretending that I care about her or her feelings, because she never cared about mine. Even my husband agrees. He says that no matter how petty or vindictive I seem right now, everything I'm doing is fueled by justified anger. I've been suppressing my rage and pain over my stepsister for so long that it was bound to come out eventually. And now is the perfect time, because she's been pushing me for a reaction for years. So, I decided to expose her. I wrote down everything she had done to me, complete with proof. I still had screenshots of my old messages with my ex, as well as the nasty texts she had sent me over the years, so there was no way she could call me a liar. I posted it all yesterday, and my phone has been blowing up ever since. Not just with messages from my family, but from her co-workers and even some of her so-called friends. Turns out, at work, she flirts with every guy, married or not. And that's not all. She treats other women like garbage, constantly badmouthing her own friends behind their backs. So far, I've learned that she's a flirt, a gossip, and a backstabber. And the list just keeps growing. She's furious that I went public with all of this and has been trying to contact me nonstop. She even made multiple fake accounts to harass me and beg me to take the post down. But I'm not scared of her. So the post stays up. I'm sure she's already reported it, and maybe Facebook will remove it eventually. But I'm not deleting it myself. My mom is also pissed at me. She keeps saying she expected me to handle this like a mature woman, and that I've completely embarrassed her. She also said my stepdad is furious because my antics have affected his reputation among his friends. So now he's demanding that I publicly apologize and take down the post. And if I don't, they're threatening to cut me out of their lives completely, which means my stepsister would get all of their inheritance. It's hilarious that they think this will scare me. Like, hello? I was the one who blocked them first. So obviously, I don't care if my stepdad wants me in his life or not. Would I be a little disappointed if my mom stopped talking to me? Sure. But like I said, I already accepted that she doesn't love me the way she loves her other daughter. And I'm okay with that. As for the inheritance, I make plenty of money, and so does my husband, so we're not worried about finances. Plus, when my dad passed away a few years ago, he left me more money than my stepdad ever had. So honestly, I couldn't care less about their inheritance. Update number 4. It's been 2 days since I posted everything. And holy shit, it completely blew up. First off, my parents have cut off all contact with me. When I told my mom I wasn't taking the post down, she tried to convince me that losing my relationship with my parents wasn't worth it. That revenge on my stepsister shouldn't be my only goal in life. I reminded her that I barely had a relationship with them anyway. So I was more than willing to lose what little was left, if it meant finally getting justice. That led to a fight, which ended with her blocking me everywhere. Then, yesterday, I got news from my relatives. My stepsister and her husband? They're getting divorced. I was completely confused at first. What could have happened overnight? After some digging, my cousin filled me in. Apparently, one of my stepsister's co-workers, a married guy who had seen my post, decided to message her husband. He sent him screenshots of my stepsister flirting with him, which had put him in an extremely uncomfortable position. And, well, my stepsister's husband did not take it well. They had a huge fight and decided to end their marriage. He filed for divorce and is demanding full custody of their son, which, honestly, is sad for the kid. But I can't lie, I am happy that they're finally facing the consequences of what they did to me. I'm staying out of it completely, but I guess my stepsister finally learned her lesson. Ever since that post, she's gone completely silent. It's crazy how one single decision to expose my stepsister ended up ruining her marriage and possibly even her relationship with her child. But I feel zero guilt. She did this to herself. As far as I know, she's now back living with my parents. Apparently, even at work, people are shunning her for her behavior. So she might end up quitting soon, too. Honestly, it's a relief to think that, for the foreseeable future, I won't have to deal with her or her insanity. And to make sure I put as much distance between us as possible, my husband and I decided to leave for our honeymoon. We're flying to Europe this week for a tour, and I cannot wait. For the next few weeks, I'm putting all this family drama behind me. I just want to enjoy my life and make the most of every moment. And you know what? Now that I've finally cut ties with my family, I already feel so much lighter.